Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by J.P. Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, J.P. Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com.
From Mansurs on the Boulevard on Corporate Boulevard in Baton Rouge, we're out to lunch with Amy Irvin. It's business, Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Amy Irvin. Welcome to Out to Lunch. When you think back on your most memorable meal, what comes to mind? The company you kept, the exceptional wine list, or an entree made up of the freshest Louisiana ingredients. My lunch guests today are Chef Barrett Meeks and Abney Harper, two Baton Rouge restaurateurs making memorable meals for locals with establishments located just doors apart from each other on Corporate Boulevard. Executive Chef Barrett Meeks of Mansurs developed his passion for cooking when he was just 8 years old. He'd been invited into John Folse's kitchen at Lafitte's Landing restaurant to see how a dessert was plated. Later, after graduating from LSU and the Louisiana Culinary Institute, he opened a food truck called the Bengalier. In 2015, Chef Meeks joined the kitchen staff at Mansurs on the Boulevard, working his way up the ranks to become executive chef in 2021. Chef Barrett Meeks, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Abney Harper met her husband and business partner when she was a student at Tulane University Law School. Years later, after practicing law for over a decade, she left her practice to join the restaurant industry. Today, Abney is the co-owner of two businesses, Prima Après, a fast casual pasta and pavlova restaurant, and two sucre restaurants, one in Covington and one in Baton Rouge on Corporate Boulevard, right next door to Mansurs. Sucre, the French word for sugar, are dessert restaurants known for their gelato and macarons. Abney Harper, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you're a regular listener to Out to Lunch, you'll know that each week we produce the program at Mansurs on the Boulevard. As the newest host, I'm still getting acquainted with the waitstaff and the extensive lunch menu, which offers classics like crab cake Covington and shrimp vacherie. Chef Meeks, Mansurs opened in 1989, and you've been associated with the restaurant for the last decade. How much do you have to balance making favorites, the restaurant is known for, with putting your own stamp on dishes?
I think the owners do a really good job of allowing us to do that. We don't change our menu. We don't offer like a seasonal menu or anything like that where we rotate stuff. We have a very consistent menu. And then as we run daily specials for lunch and dinner, so that allows us to like kind of flex our creativity. We also do wine dinners 5 or 6 times a year where the general manager and I get together, taste a bunch of wines, and then kind of write a menu around that. Or I'll have some ideas and we pair the wines to those ideas. So that way I kind of flex my creativity.
Abney, with seemingly no experience running a restaurant, you decided to open Prima Après and 2 locations of Sucre. Sucre offers a selection of macarons, gelato, and meringue. In a world of inexpensive frosties and vanilla shakes, how do you market and maintain standards for your specialty desserts?
I think for us, you know, we have recipes that we follow, and they're very precise, and it's so we set the standard, and you know we charge $3.50 for a macaron, which is a very expensive sandwich cookie, but it is made with the highest quality ingredients. It is made all by hand, and you know when you think about if you've ever made a macaron at home, it's a very, very difficult thing to do. So $3.50 is a great value for a macaron after if you have ever tried to make one. But at Sucre, we're selling an experience, right? It's you walk in and the dessert spaces these days are, with ice cream and slushies, as you say. We are really we're selling an elevated experience, and so that's what we're trying to do.
And am I right that the macarons are made in New Orleans, where Sucre first started as a business?
Yes, we have a commissary on Tchoupitoulas, and so all of our offering is made in our commissary.
And then they're delivered each day?
So what we do is we make macarons every day, and then they're frozen. And what's interesting about the macaron is that freezing the macaron actually is beneficial in the process of creating the moisture in the macaron. And so it's frozen, and so it's delivered to us frozen, and then we pull it from the freezer and slack it and sell it.
Okay. Well, I haven't been to the location here in Baton Rouge, but certainly have been to Sucre in New Orleans, and I love those little macarons.
Oh, they're wonderful.
So
they are.
They're like a little bite size of sunshine.
Oh, they're absolutely just the biggest treat.
Chef Meeks, most of the partners, managers, and chefs have worked their way up through the ranks at Mansurs. Obviously, mentorship is as important an aspect of Mansurs' longevity and success as is its fine Creole cuisine. Can you talk about your experience of working under previous executive chef Chris Motto? What did you learn from him about the role of executive chef that you didn't know already?
Chris Motto and I, I left Galatoire's, and he called me that night that I left and was like offering me a job in 2015.
So you'd known each other and worked with each other?
Yeah, we had known. I don't think we had ever worked with each other, but we knew each other through cooking circles. Baton Rouge is a very small community when it comes to cooks and chefs. So when he brought me here, I was under the stipulation of I don't want any responsibility. I just want to cook. And he allowed me to do that until I got bored, and then I went and left for 7 months and helped open up a bar that turned into a restaurant. And then when I came back, he taught me just how to be here every day.
Well, can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, what is your day-to-day? What does it look like?
My day-to-day, it's, normally it's making sure everybody gets here and it knows what to do. That's the most important thing is communication in the kitchen. Because it's monotonous. I tell people every day, it's like my life can compare to Groundhog Day. Because like every day I'm doing kind of the same thing, making sure that those problems are solved before they become problems, and just talking with my staff and making sure they're aware of like consistency. Because we have a saying back there is be consistent. If you're not consistent, you're not going to succeed in this business because people don't know if they're going to have a great time. And that's why they continue to come back to Mansurs. It's because they know they're going to have a good time.
I'm sure most diners realize that consistency is important, but they might not think about the routine that's required to ensure that consistency, especially when we're watching these, food programs on television where it seems to be excitement and drama at every turn, right?
The Bear. Right. Before that it was like, it's like Food Network, and it's like, no, not realistically.
Well, then how do you keep your staff inspired to show up every day and sort of do the same things of cutting carrots and
I think it's
plating up dishes?
One, it's you have to develop a passion first, is a passion for cooking and serving and making people happy. If I'm myself am passionate about doing that stuff and they know that's the expectation back there, then they're more likely to do that. And they do a great job. They come in and they're consistent every day. I don't have to deal with a lot of problems. It's nice,
That is nice. Can you talk a little bit about that first experience at John Folse's kitchen at Lafitte's Landing restaurant when you were 8?
Yeah. I mean, we just went out to dinner, and I had expressed interest in cooking. My dad's a really good cook, and, my mom cooked. So it's like I was always around food, and it was my dad, of course, threw me out there and was like, hey, he wants to be a chef. And they're like, oh, you want to see how, like, back there? And I was like, okay. And, quietly went back there, and it's commotion, and, they showed me how to do a bird's eye and like sauce and stuff, and we still do that to this day on our ducks. It's just little things like that, and like tradition and history, because that's what cooking is for me. I look back at the history of stuff before I can create new stuff.
Abney, do you remember the first time that you ate a macaron? What was that experience like?
Of course. So I had the great pleasure after I left my practice of law to go into the restaurant business and into fashion retail. And I went to Paris. We would go multiple times a year in one of my previous businesses on buying trips. And so that in Paris was my first macaron that I had ever had. And it just was, life-changing for me. And every trip I would bring them home to our kids. And it's just it's truly one of my favorite things.
And were you like some of these bakers that are online and Instagram who tried to make macarons from home at one point?
I have tried and failed miserably. I am not a pastry chef and don't do precision very well. That's why I have enormous respect for your consistency, chef, because it's tough.
Thank you.
It's really hard.
And with baking, and that's something I'd never really venture into.
Right.
Because I can do bread. I can do bread from feel and like just kind of making bread. But as far as like macarons, I'll buy them. I'll go to her.
Well, it's really interesting when we're making our macarons, it's so precise in true French fashion, right? That before we sandwich them, so you make the shells out of almond flour and egg whites and sugar.
Right.
And then you bake them at a low temperature, and then you fill them with, some have, gelée, some have a ganache. And then you sandwich them, but we have to literally take all of the shells and make sure that they are exactly the same size before we sandwich them together. It's basically like an Oreo. If you eat an Oreo, they're all... And so when we sandwich them... And
I don't know if the French want
I know. Exactly.
Oreos.
That's right. That's right. A sandwich cookie.
Thing.
Exactly. And so it's a glorified Oreo, right? But anyway, so and then we have to put them in the inserts, the shells, to make sure that they're exactly the right size. Because if you're going to buy a $3.50 cookie, or you're going to buy a box that can be, $50, they all have to be the same size when you line them up in the box, so that the box looks as beautiful.
I have a little more leeway than that in my precision. Yeah, a couple extra grains of cayenne isn't gonna kill anybody. So.
Yeah. Abney, you were inspired to open Prima Pri, a brand you created that features build-your-own pastas and pavlovas. This seems to me a very unusual pairing. I don't know what you think about that, chef, but I love pasta. But why pavlova? I mean, something only an Australian might know, because presumably that's where the meringue-based dessert first originated.
So it is a very unusual concept, and it's one of our biggest challenges in opening Prima Pri has been sort of educating the public of like, what is this? Like, why, right, and why are we here? Strangely enough, there's a children's cartoon called Bluey, and it has the awareness of pavlova that show has created has been amazing. But the story behind Prima Pri was, as I told you, I used to travel to Paris and Milan on buying trips for fashion. And when I was there, in France in particular, there were these big meringue clouds that were everywhere, and they were they just weren't available in the United States like you see them in Europe. And I became obsessed. And I am a self-taught chef and my background is in casual fine dining, and my restaurants were in Georgia. So what I did was I came home and I started making meringue clouds for my desserts. And so, we had a changing menu. It was a very tight, small menu, 15 items, and we would rotate it every month. And so I would make these these meringue clouds, which are also known as pavlovas, and I made them out of French meringue. And then I would have all of these leftover egg yolks from making the meringue, so I started making fresh-made pastas. And then the pastas became my best-selling entrees, while the meringue/pavlovas were my best-selling desserts. And it was a casual fine dining, and you know, Chef, how difficult it is to run an operation like this. What I really wanted to do, I closed my restaurant in COVID in Georgia, and my now husband was here, and so I moved here, and he is in the restaurant business too, and he's a restaurant growth guy, scale, and he, takes expands one unit to multiple units for restaurants. So what I really wanted to do was take my offering from my fine dining restaurant and create a quick service, counter service restaurant that has sort of chef-driven scratch kitchen offering and a counter service. So where my pasta dishes were $40 because of the overhead of a chef of a fine dining restaurant, now I can charge $15. And so we make pasta every day. We make the sauces from scratch. We buy wheels of Parmigiano Reggiano and Pecorino Romano and fresh grate them. And so it's a fine dining offering and a counter service. And so that's sort of the story behind Prima Apres.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Amy Irvin. I'm talking with Abney Harper from the restaurants Prima Apres and Sucre, and executive chef Barrett Meeks from here at Mansurs on the Boulevard. Well, I understand that you're looking to reopen it, and we'll return to that
yes.
in a minute. But I wanted to follow up, Chef. I mean, when you're putting a menu together, would you have ever thought of putting pasta and pavlova together?
No, I wouldn't, but I love the story. And I think it's for every fine dining chef, like a little part of you wants to go back and do a smaller, for me, it's a sandwich shop. I want to,
Everyone loves a good sandwich.
Everybody loves a good sandwich. That's why we had, when I had a food truck, that's what we did was sandwiches.
What was your best sandwich?
I would have to say my favorite was we did a caprese on French bread and with like the balsamic, and it was just super light, and you could add grilled chicken to it.
Out of a food truck.
Yeah. So my business partner and I worked at Galatoire's together. And, Galatoire's is famous for oysters Rockefeller. And we had the thing in the back that, it's a secret menu thing that we did where we take the Rockefeller spinach, ball it up, put some goat cheese in the middle, and then fry it. So we took that idea, so we did that. We did fried eggplant. We made a corn dog, which was my favorite.
That's
where we just took a mortadella and we sliced it as thick as we could and then cut it in half. And we had to go get tongue depressors instead of popsicle sticks because it weighed too much.
Oh, wow.
And people were like, and this is, 2014. So it's $3 for a corn dog. We're like, guys, just wait till you see it. And then we give it to them. And they're like, okay. And it was phenomenal. So
yeah, let's bring those. Do you think you'll put that on the Mansurs
we definitely
menu?
ran corn dogs last football season. Like I said, the owners allow me to express my creativity, and we brought in a hot smoked Wagyu bologna, and we turned that into corn dogs. We made our own mustard, and it's just little cheeky things like that. We'll do when we play Florida. We'll bring in gator wings, which is the front leg of an alligator, and make chicken wings out of them. So
how fun and creative.
Awesome.
They let me the wine dinners are completely up to me, and we joke around. The GM and I are planning a Dead Kennedys wine dinner where all the dishes are puns on Dead Kennedy songs. Just because.
I love that. Now I haven't come to Mansurs often. Just in walking in the door and through the restaurant, I wouldn't anticipate that these are the sort of things that you're putting together.
I think that's more of a joke, but some of the ideas we come up with might probably end up on another wine dinner, because it's just how creativity works. It's just talking through stuff and I had this idea, and then that idea might turn into 3 different things down the road of okay, that didn't work, but let me try this. So.
Now, Abney Sucre kind of has or it's known for its offerings. Do you have some leeway at Sucre to introduce new products or other offerings?
So, for instance, yes, we do. So, when we have a Prima Après, and the original location is on the North Shore in Mandeville, and we opened one on Nicholson in Baton Rouge, and it did very, very well, but the location was really tough for us for our offering there. It was sort of we ended up in that location by default, and it was not a good location for that offering, and so we'd love to be, in this neighborhood.
Baton Rouge is tough like that.
Yeah,
you never know where a location's not going to work.
It's in pockets, right? I mean, and so it was that was not the right pocket for that offering. So we're looking to relocate. But what we did was, I've taken the pavlova offering. So what happens in Prima Après is you come in and you pick it comes with vanilla bean ice cream and whipped cream, and then we do a crispy French meringue cloud, and you can pick your toppings and sauces. Well, what we've done is we've introduced the pavlova, which we call a meringue mess, into Sucre here in Baton Rouge. And so the beauty of that is that we have 12 flavors of gelato and sorbet. So you can pick whichever, and our sorbets and gelatos are fantastic. And so you can pick your flavor, and then the crispy meringue cloud goes on top, and then it comes with whipped cream. And we have a raspberry coulis and chocolate and white chocolate and dark chocolate toppings and candied spring and almonds and coconut. So that has been a new offering that we have that gives us a chance to sort of expand the offering and for guests.
Well, I understand that Prima Après has recently closed, as you already mentioned, but that you were looking for another location, possibly here on Corporate Boulevard.
Oh, we would love to. We would love to be.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you both. I mean, what about this business corridor here along Corporate Boulevard, or Baton Rouge more generally, that contributes to the success of your businesses?
Chef, I'll let you go first.
Okay. I think for us, we're surrounded by 13 hotels in a 1 mile radius, which really helps us during the week, because we have a lot of business travelers that come in. So we find Tuesday and Wednesdays end up being some of our busier shifts, just because of the business people coming in. So that's why, for us, it's really hard to even think about leaving this location,
When you're thinking about a menu, how are you thinking about the tourists or the folks that are coming into Baton Rouge from other places? Does that factor into what you're offering on the menu, or the dinner menu, perhaps?
I think it's important for chefs, and especially young chefs, to not look at cooking for other people. I cook for myself first. I want to cook what I want, something I would eat, or something I think is an intriguing idea. So I'm never going out of my way to do something that they can get other places. When somebody asks me Mansurs, what do I get when I go there? I always say get our specials, because you're going to see the creativity of our kitchen, and I push our guys to be creative and try new stuff. And, oh, you've never had this? Try it, know?
And of course, your menus reflect the seasons and what's available in the market.
Always. We always bring in farm fresh produce when we can. Our premium oysters. We work with a supplier out of New Orleans that's really great about bringing us, smaller boutique premium oysters from the East Coast, because everybody loves a good Gulf oyster, but the East Coast oysters bring a whole different flavor profile, and especially pairing wine to that, it's fun. Mm-hmm. So.
And Abney, what about you? Why are you wanting to relocate Prima Après here along Corporate Boulevard?
It's to my earlier point, it's a really nice pocket. It's people. It gets a lot of traffic there. It's residential, it's business. It's a nice mix. So, it's just it's a great location for for what we offer.
And are you also seeing business from the hotels from tourists or other business people that might be staying in the area?
We do, and we get a lot of, thank you to y'all, we get a lot of business from Mansurs. People come in and they just come in absolutely just glowing over the meal that they had here, and then they stumble in and trickle into Sucre. So we're very
Pick up
grateful
something
to you.
for on the when you
That's
get
right.
home. Yeah.
I think there's a little competition building here on the block, though.
No, it's synergy.
For the dessert.
I think it's definitely
It's synergy, I think is
definitely
what it is.
synergy. You know, if people are coming to Sucre, they see Mansurs, are like, oh, we haven't been there in a while, let's come in. You know, and they're always busy. I can tell you that.
As are you. It's nice to have them for neighbors. We had a plumbing issue, as you know, the things that go wrong in restaurants
Right.
is just, you know, it's not a glamorous life. But so we needed a shop vac, and y'all were so nice. They're just wonderful neighbors, just helpful and
We've been through
supportive.
it all. So.
And I would imagine that's really important for the longevity for any business to be working together, to be
Yeah.
supporting each other. This is a small
Like I said,
town.
Baton Rouge is a very small community with the restaurants. Epicurean Society does a great job of keeping us all together and keeping us involved, because that's a lot of times the only time you see the other chef is at, you know, a charity event or an Epicurean Society, Fête Rouge, or one of those events. So, you know, it's nice to see, because they know what you're going through. You know, the restaurant industry is just tough in general, so to have some camaraderie, you know, and that's why it's great being friends with Motto. It's like, if I'm going through something, I can call Motto and be like, oh, you know, how would you deal with this?
So many restaurants are closing because of rising food costs. So certainly that camaraderie and support among businesses is essential to stay open, especially in the summer months when things slow down.
Yeah.
Abney, I'm sure that you're doing some marketing about these Sucre locations. I'm wondering, Chef, though, you've been in this location for a long time. Do you still have to market your business in some way?
I know, and I love it. We don't do a lot of marketing. We do. It goes back to the consistency. If, you know, if somebody had a great meal with their child, and then 20 years later, that child's still coming because they had such a good meal at that first time, you know, that's how we build our clientele, and that's how we get people. And then, you know, we've been blessed by being consistent. We have good ratings on Google and Yelp, and people who come into town for business, that's the first thing you do is Google what's good around me. And then they see us, oh, you know, it's walking distance. We can walk there.
Well, what seems so special about Mansurs too is it's a special occasion place, and it's still approachable for an everyday place too.
We try.
In Louisiana, we love gathering around a table with family and friends for an exceptional meal. Those meals, like today's lunch here at Mansurs, are often inspired by Creole history and traditions, and typically end with a sumptuous bread pudding or banana foster. But other equally memorable meals end with bite-sized surprises, like French-inspired macarons or exotic pavlova, a meringue named after a Russian ballerina. In Baton Rouge, these exact culinary experiences I've described are made possible by Abney Harper of Sucre and executive chef Barrett Meeks of Mansurs on the Boulevard. Chef Meeks and Abney, congratulations on your successes to date, and thanks for sharing your stories with us. Thank you both for taking time to join me today on Out to Lunch.
Thank you so
you.
much.
My guests today on Out to Lunch have been executive chef Barrett Meeks of Mansurs on the Boulevard and Abney Harper of Prima Prey and Sucre. We edited this show to fit into our time slots here on WRKF. You can hear our unedited conversation and find out more about Chef Meeks and Abney Harper on the Out to Lunch Baton Rouge podcast. You can find and subscribe to the Out to Lunch Baton Rouge podcast on your podcast app and on our website, itsbatonrouge.la. If you want to know what we look like, you can find photos from this show on itsbatonrouge.la and on our Out to Lunch Baton Rouge social media. These photos were taken by Ben Rabelais from Alba Lido Media. You can find more photos from Alba Lido Media at albalidomedia.com and at Alba Lido Media on all socials. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsbatonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Morrill. Our associate producers are Peter Raschuti and Ann Edelman. Our researcher is Holly Dutchman. Today's show was engineered by J.T. O'Neill. I'm Amy Irvin. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the lunch table for more business, Baton Rouge style, on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch Baton Rouge is recorded live over lunch at Mansurs on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansurs is open for lunch daily 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys and offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by J.P. Morgan Chase, a partner in financial planning. Looking ahead to retirement, growing your business, or for commercial banking, J.P. Morgan Chase offers advice and solutions tailored to individual needs and client well-being. More information is at jpmorganchase.com. And by Luba Workers' Comp, a regional insurance carrier dedicated to providing reliable workers' compensation coverage to employers and workers in 13 states across the Southeast. With personalized service, trusted expertise, and tailored solutions, Luba helps businesses protect what matters most. Discover more at lubawc.com. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com.